Welcome back to Life, Biz and All That Jazz, the podcast where real talk meets transformation. I'm your host, Jasmine Lashotto, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. If you've come back for more, thank you for trusting in my vision and coming back for more. If you're navigating your mental health, ADHD, sobriety, or just want to create a life that feels like yours, this podcast is for you. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about the brain and alcohol. So the effects that alcohol has on the brain, the recovery that your brain actually does when you stop drinking, whether it's 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, a few months, a few years. All of these time frames have different stages that our brain is actually helping to recover. So I'm going to be talking a lot about science-backed data because I can obviously tell you what it's done for my brain and my almost 3 years sobriety, but that's just coming from one person. So I really like to back things up. If you've been here from the start, you'll know that a lot of my earlier episodes were really science-backed data because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that space and research. So I'm really excited to chat more about this today. That's enough from me. Now let's get into the conversation. So the first fact, did you know that the brain starts to repair itself within 24 hours after your last drink? Not just that, am I feeling better? Because for most people, if you've had a big night, you're still not feeling the best after 24 hours. It's been a long time since I remember what it's like to be hungover, and I definitely don't miss it, but it would take me days, and it would be more than likely that I would have a drink, maybe one or two, to actually make me feel better the next day. I think about that right now and think about how wrong it was, but at the time, that's all I knew. So you know, from me, there's never any judgment. I'm just telling you exactly how I feel and being honest about this situation. So neurologically, the brain will start to heal itself after 24 hours. This is measured from brain scans. So this is actual research of the brain of someone that's had a drink, and then 24 hours, they can see the changes in the brain scan. Wild, I know. Now, we're going to be talking about what alcohol does to the brain, specifically just the brain. There will be references for the ADHD brain, but this is all focused more about the whole sobriety aspect that I share, whether it comes to being ADHD, autism, neurodivergence, whatever area. But this is going to be based mainly on alcohol in the brain. And then also we'll have some aspects where we can relate the ADHD side because that is where most of you follow me from. If this is the first time listening, I want to do a little recap. I've been sober for almost 3 years. 17th of August this year, it will be 3 years. Before that, a few years leading up to it, I did a few 75 hards. I tried to cut down my drinking. There were so many things that I tried to do before I just realized that my brain does not work with alcohol. And if I want to have the life that I have now, I had to change something. So what I did, I removed alcohol. And at the start, it was hard. It was really hard because I'd been numbing and self-medicating my ADHD for years. But the thing was, when I stopped, I had to deal with all that pain that I was numbing. And this includes losing my dad. So when I was in 2016, I lost my dad. He took his own life. Then I got sober in 2023. And that's when I dealt with it properly because I felt like for years I dealt with my dad's bipolar, his multiple episodes and the depression. And all I knew to cope with my pain was to drink. And it wasn't noticed. Nobody noticed it because I was still doing my thing. And that would probably be to do with the ADHD. So being that high achiever, really wanting to exceed, that really balanced out the problem that I had with alcohol. And that also has a lot to do with the way that I think with my ADHD, and then the OCD kind of like pulls me in. So that's a whole conversation for another episode. But going back now, before I go on too much of a tangent, is when I decided to stop. I stopped at first, I just stopped. Then I downloaded an app. And the app also helped me just track that days. And I think that was that motivation of, another day's passed, seeing that number go up with the days. But what was also important was the facts that I was learning. And the facts that I learned about, and I didn't realize when I first got sober, I had an idea that I might have had ADHD, had no idea I was actually clinically OCD. I just thought that some of the things that I had maybe related to trauma or ADHD. Anyway, the facts about the brain and what was actually happening that day to my brain after 24 hours, a week, a month, it actually shows you how your brain's healing and how your organs are healing, how you're feeling. And that really supported me through the journey because I think if I didn't understand that and the facts and the actual science facts of what it was doing to my body and my brain, then I probably could have drank again. I think that's what really helped me not drink and actually understanding how it was affecting my brain. And then when I got diagnosed, all the information that I learned about how alcohol affects ADHD and how it's detrimental to growth and just to being. That's a little recap of my story. Fast forward to now, almost 3 years sober. And now I share about this because I'm just so passionate about other people seeing the possibility to have the life that they really want if they feel stuck. If you feel stuck, if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, you're trying all this stuff and then you're still drinking alcohol, just have a little think about removing it for a bit and seeing the progress. And if you need facts, if you need to actually understand why, you need to really break it down and not just be like, I feel better when I don't drink. Oh, I'm more motivated when I don't drink. Why are you more motivated when you don't drink? Why do you feel better? Because alcohol is a depressant. And then we could keep going into that whole thing, but I'm not going to preach to anyone to not drink. Let's get back to some facts. Let's start with what alcohol actually does to your brain. After your first sip, within minutes, alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier. Yes. So as soon as you have that sip, it's that strong that it literally goes straight to your brain. That's probably why after a first sip, you're feeling a little bit more confident, a little bit less social anxiety, and just getting that little buzz. It's not, for everyone's not going to be in an instant. It depends on your muscle. It depends on your weight. There's so many factors that it can affect, but pretty much chemically in the body, that's what it's doing. Alcohol also triggers a dopamine release. That's right. When you have an alcohol, you get that dopamine boost. And for anyone with ADHD, that boost is something that your body can't naturally do. And in general, your body can't naturally do, whether you have ADHD or not. So as soon as you have that sip, you want more. I want more of that boost. So you're going to have more and more and more until your body can't tolerate just a few drinks. So then that's where that cycle kicks in, that you need to have more every time you do drink. Alcohol works with two key neurotransmitters, so GABA and glutamate. So GABA is more of your calming and glutamate is your stimulating signal. Alcohol boosts GABA and suppresses glutamate. That's when you first have that moment. Scientifically, in your brain, that's what's happening to the chemicals. Let's reframe back to the dopamine. So the dopamine is obviously borrowed. It's not something that you are getting naturally and your body's naturally producing. This is something artificial that's boosting your dopamine. It's not sustainable and you end up having to chase a different type of baseline, which is not your normal baseline. And this is to do with your hedonic set point, that the more you drink, the more you're going to need. And the longer you go without not drinking, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, your tolerance for that and your hedonic set point isn't going to be a normal baseline. So most of the time you're finding yourself having a drink to get happy. So I know the relaxation from drinking, it's real. The reduced stress is real. The happiness is real. It does do all these things, but what is it costing you? So the short term versus the long term is something that really needs to be weighed up, because if it's costing you your motivation, if it's costing you growth, if it's costing you your family, work, if there's all these negative parts of it, then is it really balancing it out to be beneficial for you? And that's something that you need to ask yourself, because nobody can answer that but yourself. All right, so now I've got some more data. I'm going to read off my iPad because it's a little bit technical and I want to make sure that I say it right, because a lot of the times when I'm talking about these neurotransmitters and I get my words jumbled up, I can read something a million times and still not pronounce it properly, but that's fine. That's what I deal with, and that's just how my brain works. This section is going to be focused on the ADHD brain and alcohol. ADHD brains operate with approximately 30% lower baseline dopamine, which is why focus, motivation, and emotional regulation are harder by default. Alcohol provides a temporary dopamine surge. For many ADHD people, drinking felt like it was working. That's because it was. It just came at a price. A 2024 neuroimaging study found that ADHD drinkers had 67% less dopamine receptor availability than ADHD non-drinkers, a compounded deficient on top of an already depleted system. People with ADHD are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorder. The science confirms this is neurobiological, not a character flaw. Both ADHD and alcohol use disorder damages the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for impulse control and decision making. ADHD already affects this region. Alcohol compounds it. That's some important factors of why ADHD just doesn't work with alcohol. And another thing that really helped support me, my journey of sobriety and not going back to drinking, is that you have to sometimes just accept that not everything is going to be on your side. And alcohol is one of them. And for me, I can see it clearly, but I know when you're in the thick of it and you rely on it all the time, it's not as easy. Now let's get into what heavy drinking does to your brain over time. A study published in 2025 found that people who drink 8+ drinks per week have significantly higher risk of brain lesions, a condition that narrows blood vessels and restricts blood flow to the brain. Heavy drinking shrinks the hippocampus, your memory center. The prefrontal cortex, already impacted by ADHD, is further damaged by chronic drinking, a double hit. Even moderate drinking is now linked to reduced cortical volume. The 1 or 2 glasses is fine narrative is being challenged by current neuroscience. And I think this is really important because they're saying that if alcohol was introduced today, it would be banned. Let that sink in. Another thing as well is that there used to be like 1 or 2 glasses of red wine a week or 1 glass of red wine a day. We are basing this off wine that was made with people stomping on grapes. This is wine that is produced without any preservatives. There's so much cheap wine now. It's all full of preservatives. Yes, if you drink organic, it's probably a little bit better. But a lot of the statistics and the data when it comes to how much wine, so they're redoing it all now, which is obviously what this is saying as well. And all this will be linked in the show notes. That whole narrative of like 1 or 2 glasses a day or a week is fine. It's good for your health. Red wine's good for your health. Is based on old data, not what's happening now. And especially with everything else that we're consuming in our body and the environment, it's like it's got to be real data that we're using now that's based on our current lives now and what we're consuming now. And when I'm saying this, I am saying this from a passion of what's helped me. I'm not sharing this, and I don't want anyone to look at this and feel judged or shame. This is just something to think about. And it's not going to be an easy thing of, well, it could be that you make the decision tomorrow that you don't want to drink anymore, but you need to have things that are going to help you stick to that. And you need to have motivators. So that's why all I can really do is share my personal experience, share the data, and then hope that people can understand and see something else than what they're currently seeing. And there is a way out of the numbing and the using alcohol to cope. All right. So the brain and the recovery time. So now this is the fun part. Let's talk about what happens when you do stop drinking. Your brain begins to recover within 24 hours of the last drink. That's what I mentioned earlier on. Within 14 days, rapid recovery of brain volume begins. A protein called BDNF, described by researchers as brain fertilizer, rises and stays elevated for at least 6 months, actively rebuilding neuro pathways. At 3 months, verbal fluency, working memory, mental flexibility, and visomotor function all show statistically significant improvement. At 7 months, brain thickness becomes comparable to people who never had alcohol use disorder. Full recovery continues for 5 to 7 years. Think about that. So my brain is still recovering from all the times I drank. And I think that's wild, but that's also really exciting because does that mean I'm going to get smarter? But we'll stay tuned for that. I think one of the hardest things as well when you do start to stop drinking and you make that choice and you don't drink for a little while and then you go back to drinking, it can be because it's just there's no other option or you don't see another option and like your brain needs it. Your brain is stronger, the negative thoughts are stronger, the self-doubt is stronger than it is your willpower. And that's completely fine. Like that's human nature. That's how our brains are. But it's just that slow steps and putting in the things in place and removing yourself from certain situations, knowing that you are going to have to sacrifice for a better future. You have to say no. You have to not go to events if you feel like you're going to have a drink there. And it gets easier. Like every now and then I'll go to dinner and out for some drinks with my friends. It's probably like once every few months now because it just depends what I'm doing. And we just don't really do that. We'd rather just have a chill at the house. But I'm always around alcohol. And I've built that muscle that I don't even get the urge to have a drink because I know that it's not for me. And I'm not going to put pressure on anyone around me to not drink. But if I do something where it's a social event and like there's music or see a band or go out or something like that, I just feel so fun and I have the best times being sober and like dancing. It's just a whole different vibe. It really is. And for me to know that I could be in bed by 12 o'clock, wake up the next day, still have everything planned for the day, and be able to go do things and be around it and have fun, knowing that I can still have plans the next day, not have to not plan anything for the next day because I think I'm going to be in bed hungover. So that was always really cool. And it still is. Obviously, I'm doing it all the time. One thing I really want you to understand is that you didn't damage your brain because you were reckless. Nobody drinks alcohol to black out. Nobody becomes an addict for no reason. I personally believe this. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's fine. I'm open for constructive criticism. I strongly believe that there is a reason why people turn to alcohol and then it becomes a problem, addiction. I think it has a lot to do with trauma. I think it has a lot to do with self-doubt, with societal pressures. There's usually a backstory to why someone drank and why they keep drinking. And even if you haven't been through anything and you haven't experienced anything as a child, but then you always, just as soon as you had your first drink, you always wanted to drink. And then obviously you found out you have ADHD. That's your reason. It doesn't have to be trauma related, but there's usually a reason why people have a bad relationship with alcohol. Not because it's by choice. I don't want you to put the pressure on yourself. And I think that's the first step, is having that forgiveness to know that this was the only option that you had. You didn't have anything else to help you. Alcohol helps you. That's fine. That's not your fault. And there's so much shame and there's so much judgment around people that have problems with alcohol, but people don't look at it in another way. And I think that's something that I have as a strength now. If I see someone with an alcohol problem, or they're drinking a lot more, or they're blacking out, I'm not going to look at them and think of, oh, how embarrassing. Like, look at that. Like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And it's just having that compassion and knowing that everyone's going through something and there's reasons why people do things. Most people, I can't speak for everyone, but most people don't want to be a burden. Most people don't want to be sad and depressed. Most people don't want to be a bad person to somebody else. It's a lot of the times there's other factors which have created this environment. If you are sober, if you're using recovery, if you are sober curious, I think the biggest thing that you need to hold on to is that time heals and some pain will never go away. But the facts show that the longer you go without drinking, your brain is going to heal. Your new pathways are going to come. Things are going to be easier. And it's not always the fact that going to meetings will help, talking to other people that are sober, therapy. You need to find what works for you. You also need to understand that the science tells you not to blame yourself. The science facts. People around you, people that know you, people that are your friends, their family, they support you or they don't support you. What they think about your drinking is their perception, not your perception. Doesn't mean that the shame that they put on you or the guilt or the embarrassment is what you have to feel. You have to feel what feels right for you. And the best piece of advice I can give to you is to look at the science data, because that is what shows you, one, why ADHD people are more likely to have a problem with alcohol, and two, the links to alcohol dependency, and the longer you drink, the more you need to drink. And three, how your brain actually repairs and how long it actually can take for your brain to repair after you stop drinking. And that's something I want you to hold on to from today's conversation. So all the time that I spend and put into the podcast is my own time. I'm using my own money to support the podcast. So what I have started is a donation link, and you could support the show from donating something as little as the price of a coffee. I'm doing this because everything adds up when it comes to production, timing, and what I would really like to do is put more back into the podcast and to be able to record in a bigger studio, to be able to really up the content production, and everything that's donated will go back into the podcast to support the show. I was a little bit weird about doing this because I don't really like asking for anything. I've always been that person that does everything myself and will have another avenue, and obviously working a lot in my business is helping support this as well. But with everything, the cost of everything, I just really want to make this show the best that it can be. And I know that that could happen with the support of donations. So thank you so much for listening today. I would love to hear your feedback. If you have any questions, I'm only a message away. And just remember, you are not broken, you are becoming, and I will see you next week.